The palace loomed ahead, a monolithic structure of obsidian and violet crystal. Twin moons cast an eerie glow over its sleek spires, and shimmering energy barriers hummed faintly, their violet hues shifting like restless phantoms. The Jatak Empire's crown jewel, impregnable, they claimed. Elias Kane crouched behind a ridge of sculpted stone, eyes locked on the nearest sentry. 7 feet tall, armored in organic plating, the alien warrior exhaled mist in the cool night air. Elias tilted his head slightly. Celine, hidden in the shadows beside him, answered with a ghost of a smile. They moved in tandem. Elias closed the distance with controlled speed, a blade slipping into his hand. The guard barely had time to react before Elias's knife found the soft spot beneath the mandibles. A wet gurgle, then silence. Celine dragged the body back as Elias pressed a fingertip to his temple, activating his retinal HUD. 3 guards on the eastern balcony. A gap in the patrol rotation. 4 minutes to move. Celine scaled the wall first, her form blending seamlessly into the dark. Elias followed, feeling the faint tremor of repulsive fields beneath his fingertips. The palace's security was designed for brute force invasions, not shadows. At the top, they crouched in silence, observing the opulent expanse before them. The Jatak didn't believe in subtlety. The palace's interior was a masterpiece of excess, tapestries woven with the blood of conquered species, towering sculptures depicting their emperors trampling lesser beings beneath clawed feet. The air itself smelled of power, spiced incense, polished metal, and something deeper, older. Celine's gaze flicked to a grand hall beyond, where aliens of every shape and stature milled about in extravagant silks and gilded exoskeletons. "The princess is hosting a gala," she murmured. Elias tapped his wrist console. A shimmering holographic interface flared to life, displaying intercepted communications. Princess Tvaka was indeed present, surrounded by foreign dignitaries, high-ranking military officials, and lesser nobility, an ideal target. Celine adjusted the cuff of her sleek bodysuit, revealing a concealed blade. Time to crash the party. They moved like phantoms, slipping into the corridors unnoticed. Every step, every shift of their weight, was calculated. A wrong move, a single misstep, and alarms would seal their fate. A lone attendant, a lesser Jatak, skin mottled with copper scales, turned a corner and nearly collided with Elias. His reaction was instant. A precise grip on the alien's throat, a sharp twist. The body sagged. Celine caught it before it hit the ground. "Elegant," she whispered. They donned disguises swiftly. Celine draped herself in the attendant's ceremonial cloak, her posture shifting into something regal. Elias pulled a shimmering veil over his head, enough to obscure his features but not arouse suspicion. They stepped into the gala. The chamber was a breathtaking display of alien decadence, floating crystal chandeliers, hovering trays laden with exotic delicacies, and nobles whispering in hushed, calculated tones. At the center, Princess Tvaka. She was striking, even by Jatak standards. Slender but tall, her bile-plated dress shimmered with refracted starlight. Her long, barbed tail curled lazily behind her as she spoke with an older dignitary, her laughter a melodic chime beneath the ambient hum of conversation. Celine's gaze locked onto her, the way a panther sizes up prey. Elias subtly activated his implant, scanning the room. Guards positioned at exits. Suspicious eyes lingering on newcomers. Time was limited. Celine adjusted her posture, the slight tilt of her chin exuding nobility. She stepped forward, slipping into the crowd with effortless grace. Elias shadowed her, his every sense attuned to the shifting air. The princess turned just as Celine approached, her gaze sharp and assessing. "You are not of the court," Tvaka observed. Celine's lips curled into an enigmatic smile. "No, Highness. I am something far more interesting." The princess tilted her head, curiosity piqued. "Oh? And what would that be?" Celine leaned in slightly, her voice a whisper just for Tvaka's ears. "A promise fulfilled." The princess frowned, lips parting in confusion. In that instant, Celine struck. The blade was small, a sliver of obsidian forged in human laboratories. It slid beneath Tvaka's ribs, precisely angled between organs. The princess stiffened, exhaling sharply. Elias was already moving, stepping between them as if guiding a drunken noble away. To the others, it appeared a mere whisper of scandal, a clandestine conversation gone awry. Tvaka's legs faltered. Her breath itched, but she was already fading. The venom laced in Celine's blade was potent, paralysis first, followed by an agonizingly slow demise. Elias steadied her with an arm, his voice smooth. "You should sit, Highness." She did, slumping into a nearby chair, her fingers twitching as she tried to summon words. None came. Celine took a sip from a stolen glass of wine. "One down." The first scream rang out moments later. Guards surged forward as Tvaka convulsed, her body betraying her final, twitching death throes. A noble shrieked, and in an instant, chaos detonated across the gala. Elias and Celine moved before the security teams could react. Celine tossed a small sphere to the ground, a pulse grenade. The detonation was silent, but every light flickered and died. The chamber plunged into darkness. Elias seized Celine's wrist, pulling her toward the nearest corridor. "They'll lock the palace down," she murmured as they ran. "They already have." The security klaxons screamed to life. Heavy blast doors slammed shut behind them, sealing the corridors in an attempt to trap intruders. Elias activated his implant's night vision, scanning their path. "Secondary route. Ventilation shafts. We go up." Celine nodded, already reaching for the panel. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit. Heavy boots, the guttural growls of the Emperor's elite hunters. Celine pried open the vent and slipped inside. Elias followed, sealing it behind them just as the first guards rounded the corridor. From within the shadows they listened. One guard muttered something in Jatak, his voice edged with fury. Another responded urgent, sharp. Then the words came that sent a shiver through the air. "The Emperor wants their heads. No prisoners." Celine exhaled softly, her lips curving in something between amusement and anticipation. "They're making this fun." Elias glanced at her. "We'll see how much fun they're having when their Emperor is dead." They vanished into the darkness, leaving only silence in their wake. Princess Tvaka's body convulsed one final time on the polished marble dais, her eyes wide, mouth frozen mid-scream. The gala turned into chaos. Nobles tripped over their extravagant robes, alien dignitaries shrieked in strange tongues, and guards drew weapons too late. The princess's lifeless form slid from her chair with a hollow thud that echoed through the vast chamber. Elias was already moving. He swept a jeweled platter from a servant's hands and hurled it into a cluster of guards to draw their attention. In that instant of confusion, Celine vanished through the far archway. A pulse of static crackled through Elias's calm. "Grid control room. I'll shut them blind." He didn't respond. Words weren't necessary. Guards poured in, panic twisting their faces into snarls. Elias adjusted his veil and stepped back, melting into the chaos. The gala floor was a storm of flashing blades, guards barking orders, and guests scrambling like cornered prey. One of the guards pointed in Elias's direction, eyes narrowing with suspicion. Elias let his hand rest casually on the hilt of his blade. "Not yet. Too soon." A scream cut through the clamor. The princess's death finally registered in full. Her personal guard surged forward, drawing long, curved vibroblades. Elias pivoted, slipping into a servant's corridor just as alarms blared. The palace sealed itself with a mechanical groan, blast doors sliding shut, windows polarizing. "Grid in lockdown." Celine's voice came through, laced with satisfaction. "They're scrambling. Redirect palace security to Sector 14. Draw them off." "Already done." In the control room, Celine would be a storm. He didn't worry. Elias reached a maintenance shaft and climbed, muscles burning, breath steady. The shaft opened near the upper levels, overlooking the royal courtyard, a sprawling garden of bioluminescent flora and statues carved from starstone. He scanned quickly. Patrols crisscrossed the grounds. Drones hovered, their scanners sweeping in tight arcs. Each blink of their sensors was a threat. Each step forward could trigger detection. His HUD mapped out their patrol routes in seconds. A tight window. He jumped, rolling into the shadows between two massive columns. Overhead, the Emperor's private chambers loomed. Elias! Celine's whisper crackled in his ear. You've got company. Movement to his right. A patrol unit, not guards, but war beasts. Genetically engineered horrors with thick hide and jaws lined with serrated bone. They sniffed the air, muscles twitching. Elias froze. The nearest beast paused, nostrils flaring. Its eyes glowed faintly, scanning. It turned, and snarled. Elias didn't wait. He sprinted for the far wall. The creature lunged with terrifying speed, claws raking the air. Elias vaulted up the wall, grabbing a decorative ledge. The beast slammed into stone below, howling. From above, two guards appeared, weapons drawn. Elias kicked off the ledge, catching one guard's throat with the heel of his boot. The alien crumpled. The second guard lunged, a brutal overhand slash. Elias caught the wrist midair, twisted sharply, and the alien's blade plunged into its own gut. Distractions are handled, he muttered. Grid's going dark, Celine replied. The lights in the courtyard flickered once, twice, then died. Perfect. Elias slipped through the dark, up the final set of stairs toward the Emperor's chambers. But the chamber doors were already sealed tight, protected by a force field crackling with blue energy. Celine, I need eyes on the throne room, he said. Patching in, wait. Static. Then her breath in his ear. Decoys. The Emperor isn't inside. His stomach turned to ice. Where is he? Hunting us. Elias exhaled slowly. Change of plans. I'm heading to lower levels. He's drawing us in. Acknowledged. I'll meet you there. Celine's voice was steady, but he knew what she was thinking. The Emperor was smart, not a coward in a locked chamber. He wanted blood. Elias descended into the lower levels. The palace's understructure was less opulent, all stone and steel. Here, no tapestries or crystal lights. Just the cold hum of power conduits, and the distant sounds of footsteps. He turned a corner and found Celine waiting, her lips split, blood staining her collar. Beast found me. He glanced at her injuries. Superficial. You left survivors? She smirked. No. From deeper within the corridor, growls echoed, not from beasts. Guards. Armed, hunting, angry. We don't have long, Elias said. They moved together, slipping through narrow maintenance corridors, reaching the core passage leading toward the Emperor's war chamber. At the far end, massive blast doors parted. And there he stood. Emperor Vraxis. He wasn't draped in ceremonial robes. He wore war armor, living metal plates that shifted with each breath. His eyes glowed with burning hatred. You dare! His voice rumbled, echoing off the stone. Celine took a step forward. We do more than dare. The Emperor's gauntlet crackled with energy. He extended a hand. A bolt of searing plasma lanced down the corridor. Elias pulled Celine back just in time. The stone wall where they had stood turned to molten slag. Run? Celine asked. Run, Elias agreed. They sprinted down the side passages, the Emperor's wrath pursuing them in burning streaks of plasma. Every shot obliterated walls, vaporized stone, and sent shrapnel slicing through the air. We split up, Elias said between breaths. Me point Gamma, Celine confirmed. She veered left. Elias plunged down a winding stairwell into darkness. The Emperor's roar echoed behind them. I will break your species. Elias clenched his jaw. Not tonight. He slid into cover as another blast shook the walls. Rubble fell around him. Celine, status? On my way to Gamma. 2 minutes. The Emperor's coming for me. I'll lead him away. Elias. Trust me. He bolted, drawing the Emperor's fire. Each plasma burst scorched stone at his heels. He ran harder, heart pounding. Ahead, the core reactor chamber. A perfect trap. He slipped inside, crouching behind machinery. Footsteps followed, heavy, purposeful. The Emperor entered, his armor hissing with energy. "Face me." Elias rose slowly. "Gladly." The Emperor charged. And the trap began. The Emperor charged like a storm given flesh. His armor shifted, adapting, plating thickening along his limbs. His steps cracked the stone beneath him, molten plasma seething in his gauntlets. Elias had fought many things in his lifetime: mercenaries, warlords, genetically modified killers, but Emperor Vraxus was something else. This was a battle forged in vengeance. Elias pivoted, rolling aside just as the Emperor's plasma strike obliterated the console where he'd stood. Sparks rained down like burning ash. He darted left, using the reactor's massive cooling conduits for cover. The chamber trembled with the force of Vraxus's fury. The Emperor didn't hesitate. His next attack came in a deadly arc, a backhanded sweep that sent a shockwave through the air. Elias barely dodged in time. The impact shattered the conduit behind him, sending shards of metal flying. One caught his cheek, drawing a hot line of blood. Fast. Stronger than expected. But not invincible. Elias sprang forward, blade in hand, a precise strike aimed at the gap in the Emperor's armor near the ribs. Vraxus twisted at the last second, his gauntlet catching Elias's wrist. In an instant, pressure crushed down like a vice. Elias gritted his teeth, his bones threatening to snap. The Emperor lifted him with ease, golden eyes burning with contempt. "You humans are insects." Elias smirked through the pain. "Then you should have crushed us when you had the chance." His free hand moved, fast. A small, charged blade slid between the segmented plates of the Emperor's wrist. The effect was immediate. Sparks burst from the armor as the servos overloaded. The gauntlet locked up, its grip faltering for a fraction of a second. Elias wrenched himself free, landing hard. He rolled, ignoring the sting in his arm. The Emperor flexed his fingers, testing the damage. His glare darkened. "Clever. It's what we do," Elias muttered. A warning flashed in his HUD, Celine approaching. "Elias, ETA 20 seconds. Make it 10. Vraxus didn't give him the chance to breathe. He moved with terrifying speed, closing the distance in a heartbeat. A hammering fist struck Elias's shoulder, sending him crashing into the reactor's secondary control station. The impact rattled his bones. Pain flared, but pain was familiar. Pain was a teacher. Vraxus lunged again, but this time Elias was ready. He threw himself low, dodging the Emperor's crushing blow and slashing a monomolecular blade across the back of the alien's knee joint. The blade bit deep, black ichor splattered onto the floor. The Emperor stumbled. A first. Elias pressed the advantage, driving his knife toward the alien's throat. Vraxus roared, catching Elias mid-strike. He twisted, using sheer strength to hurl the assassin across the chamber. Elias barely managed to turn mid-air before slamming into a pillar. His ribs screamed in protest. Vraxus straightened, rolling his shoulders. The wound on his leg sealed itself as the living metal of his armor adjusted. "You fight well. But you cannot win." Elias wiped blood from his lip. "Who said anything about winning?" A flash of movement from above. Celine dropped from the rafters like a shadow, landing with feline grace. Her blade struck first, deep into the soft joint beneath the Emperor's arm. The weapon hissed, a reactive neurotoxin flooding into his bloodstream. Vraxus staggered, his breath hitching. Celine was already gone before he could retaliate, flipping backward and landing beside Elias. "You started without me. He's a terrible host." The Emperor's breathing grew heavier. The toxin was working, but not fast enough. His kind was resistant. "You think poison will fell me?" Celine shrugged. "Not poison. Just a delay." Elias activated his wrist console. A low, ominous beep echoed through the chamber. The Emperor's gaze flicked to the ceiling. Small, nearly imperceptible charges had been placed along the upper framework. He understood a second too late. Elias and Celine dove behind cover as the charges detonated. The explosion sent molten debris raining down, striking the reactor controls. Alarms wailed. The chamber trembled. Reactor destabilizing. Elias exhaled sharply. Time to go. Celine grabbed his wrist, pulling him toward the emergency exit. Behind them, Vraxus struggled to rise, his armor fighting against both the toxin and the damage. His form blurred in the smoke and fire, a silhouette of rage. You will not escape. Elias didn't answer. He and Celine moved in sync, sprinting through the labyrinthine corridors as klaxons blared across the palace. The Jatak war machine was waking. Every corridor they passed filled with soldiers scrambling to secure the throne room, unaware that the true war was already lost. The palace would fall. They reached an access panel leading to the exterior support beams. Celine activated the override, forcing the heavy doors open. Cold night air rushed in. Below them, the capital city stretched in all directions, towers glistening under twin moons. Distant anti-air batteries swiveled in confusion, tracking phantom threats. Elias tapped his earpiece. Rook, are you in position? A deep chuckle answered. I was getting bored. Far above, the silent form of their exfil ship uncloaked. Engines roared to life. Celine secured a grappling line to the beam's edge. After you? Elias clipped his harness. They jumped together, free-falling for only a second before the line caught, swinging them toward the open cargo bay. The ship's pilot adjusted, hovering just enough to intercept their momentum. They landed hard. Rook, their demolitions expert, grinned. Cutting it close? Celine rolled her eyes. He wanted to chat with the Emperor. Rook snorted. How'd that go? Elias exhaled, glancing out the viewport. Below, the palace shuddered. Fire burst from the lower levels as containment fields failed. The Emperor still lived. For now. He met Celine's gaze. They weren't done. Not yet. The palace burned behind them, but Elias didn't feel victory. Smoke rose in plumes that painted the night sky in sickly hues of orange and black. The Emperor had survived the reactor collapse. He could feel it in his bones. Celine stood by the viewport, silent, her arms crossed tight across her chest. Rook piloted with steady hands, keeping the ship low, weaving between defense grids as if on instinct. He's still alive, Elias said finally. Celine didn't turn. I know. Their mission parameters were clear, the entire royal family. The princess was dead. The emperor wounded but breathing. One more remained, the heir. Prince Fakir. Born in secrecy, hidden from public knowledge. The next tyrant in waiting. And according to intel Celine had decrypted mid-flight, his location was not far, a fortified mountain estate deep in the southern wastes. We finished this, Elias murmured. Rook raised an eyebrow. We're taking on the entire royal line in one night? They killed our people in one breath. A family. A mother, a father, 2 children. They didn't blink. Elias's voice tightened. I'll do this until their bloodline is memory. Rook nodded once. Point me to the target. Celine finally spoke. I've already done more than that. She tapped the console. A hologram bloomed, the estate. Circular towers carved into sheer cliffs, shielded by atmospheric disruptors and a personal army bred from the Emperor's elite. 30 minutes out, Rook confirmed. The ship sped toward its final destination, silence settling between them. Elias cleaned his blade methodically, the simple ritual focusing his mind. Celine checked her gear with mechanical precision, every click of her rifle's magazine echoing with purpose. He'll be protected, Celine warned. That's never stopped us. We're going in underpowered. No backup. Limited ordnance. We have each other. Elias met her gaze. That's enough. The estate appeared on the horizon, a fortress of jagged stone and shimmering shields. Anti-air turrets swiveled toward them, but Celine's earlier sabotage of palace defense protocols still held. The guns faltered, their targeting scrambled. Land 2 clicks out, Elias ordered. The ship touched down on uneven rock, the engines winding down to a whisper. Extraction point here, Rook confirmed. I'll circle once you call. Elias and Celine disembarked into bitter cold, wind slicing across the barren landscape. The climb began. They scaled sheer rock faces, boots slipping on frost-slick stone, breath tight and sharp. Celine led, eyes scanning for sentries. A glimmer of movement. She froze, lifted 2 fingers. A sniper's silhouette perched along the ridge. Elias didn't hesitate. He drew a silenced bolt pistol and fired. The sentry's body crumpled without a sound. They moved forward. The estate loomed above them, alien banners flapping in the high wind, the insignia of a dynasty that had believed itself untouchable. Not tonight. They reached the outer perimeter, bypassed the security field with code fragments Celine had lifted from the palace control mainframe. Inside, the estate was eerily silent. No guards patrolled. No alarms blared. Trap? Celine whispered. Or arrogance? Either was fine. They pressed deeper into the compound. Marble corridors stretched endlessly, decorated with grotesque statues, alien warriors locked in poses of victory, trampling weaker species underfoot. Elias clenched his fists. They reached the central hall. A single ornate door sealed before them. Celine hacked the lock. The door hissed open. Inside, a boy no older than 15 stood beside an armored figure, the Emperor. His armor was battered, scorched, ichor still dripping from the cracks. But he stood. The prince's eyes were wide with terror. The Emperor's were calm. You came, Braxis said. We finish what we start, Elias answered. The Emperor placed a hand on the prince's shoulder. Leave us, Vakir. Father! Go! The boy fled, the door sealing behind him. I will not beg, Braxis said softly. I wouldn't respect you if you did. Elias drew his blade. I underestimated your species. Everyone does. The fight began in silence. Braxis lunged forward, his strike precise despite his wounds. Elias met the blow, steel clashing against living metal. Sparks flew. Celine flanked, firing controlled bursts. The Emperor deflected each with inhuman reflexes, closing the distance with brutal efficiency. He struck Celine with the back of his hand, sending her sprawling. Elias attacked. Blade met gauntlet, slicing through weakened armor. Braxis roared, grabbed Elias by the throat, and slammed him against the wall. Pain radiated down Elias's spine. He gasped for air, vision blurring. Celine returned with fury, driving her blade into the Emperor's side. He roared again, turning on her, but Elias broke free. He drove his blade deep into Braxis's heart. The Emperor staggered, blood flooding his chest cavity. You fight like wolves. We fight for family, Elias whispered. Braxis fell to his knees, then forward. The war ended in silence. Elias knelt beside Celine, helping her up. Her breathing was ragged but steady. He's gone, she whispered. Good. They turned toward the door. The prince waited. He trembled, eyes locked on his father's corpse. Elias raised his pistol. Please, the boy whispered. I didn't order the slaughter. But you would have. He fired once. The dynasty ended. Outside, dawn broke over the mountains. They climbed back toward the extraction point in silence, weight lifted yet heavier than ever. The ship waited. Rook opened the ramp. All done? All done. As they ascended into orbit, Elias looked down one last time. No thrones left to rebuild. Mission complete.